Good morning. In this week's Sidra of Shlach, after the sin of the spies and the consequent punishment of the Jewish people, that this entire generation will spend the rest of their lives in the wilderness, we have the incident mentioned of a man who goes out to gather wood on Shabbat. Now, exactly what he did is not completely clear, whether it was breaking the branches off the tree, which one's not allowed to do on Shabbat, gathering the wood together. He did something that was in violation of Shabbat and was dealt with accordingly. The question our sages ask is, number one, why is he doing this? Does he need wood so badly that even on Shabbat he's going to go out and do it, especially since people warned him, etc.? And number two, why is that mentioned right now in the Torah? So there's an opinion in the Midrash, which Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen quotes, that it says it was particularly now, after death had been decreed upon this generation in the wilderness, that there was a danger of them losing hope, a danger of them feeling that there's no point in carrying on, a sense of, what are we even going to bother for? At the end of the day, we're all going to die here in this desert. And they might actually give up on the Jewish nation and on the Jewish mission. And in a time like this, you need somebody to step up and somehow re-imbue them with a sense of responsibility, in a sense that this is something really serious, and a sense of the mission that they're engaged in. Now, we'd like to do it always through inspiration. We'd like to do it that somebody would stand up and say, it's so important and so special, and even though we won't get into Israel, let's think about our children who will. That's wonderful. But sometimes it needs to be done with strength also and with consequences, and to show people that if you step out of line, there are going to be consequences to it. And this man who decided to do this, our sages say, this was his intention. He intended to become a public example to the people, to say, even now, when we are cast out of Israel, so to speak, when we have lost our chance to enter in this generation, even now there are very strong lines, and if we step out of them, we're going to have to pay the price. That, says Rabbi Tzadok, was the idea. And Rabbi Tzadok involves this with the idea, compares this to the idea of Aveira Lishma. Aveira Lishma is an idea that the Gemara mentions, but is spoken about at length, especially in Hasidic and mystical texts. The idea of doing the wrong thing, but for some higher goal, for some ultimate right idea. It's quite as straightforward as, the means justify the end. But it's the idea that the end justifies the means. But it's the idea that you're doing something that you're not allowed to do, but there's a reason why ultimately this is going to be what Hashem wants. And Judaism is very, very nervous around this kind of behavior. Although what Rabbi Tzadok says makes it a little more complicated, is that sometimes it's true. We find within Teshuvah that a person does the wrong thing, he does an Aveira, he goes against the will of Hashem, and then he does Teshuvah for it, he repents, and suddenly, not only is the sin atoned, but the sin itself becomes like a mitzvah. His level of spirituality is greater than even that of somebody who never did something wrong. We find this idea within Teshuvah that it redeems sin, that it uplifts the person to such great heights. And so that, says Rabbi Tzadok, was what this person thought. He'll do the wrong thing for this intention to bring the nation to realization of the seriousness, and then he will do teshuvah, and they will all be uplifted, and he'll actually accomplish something very good from it. However, he says that's only b'diavad. That's only if you did the sin which is unconscionable, you're not allowed to do that, then you do teshuvah, you redeem it. But you can never come with this attitude that I'm intentionally going to do the wrong thing and redeeming it. I'm going to intentionally step out of line and then bring it back. That doesn't work. It's only something that can be done if you've done the sin. And again, why I say this is a subtle concept is Rabbi Tzadok says in other places that sometimes Hashem will place a person in sin. Sometimes he will even take away a person's free choice so that he ends up doing the sin without his choice, and then he will do teshuvah to redeem it. Nonetheless, he says, you cannot ever make that choice to sin and do teshuvah, even with all the justification in the world. He says that's why the man was gathering wood, and he got mixed up with the tree. Wood in the Hebrew over here is eitz. He says he got mixed up with the trees. You have the tree of life, eitz hachayim, and you have the tree of knowledge of good and evil, eitz hadat tov v'ra. In the Garden of Eden, the people, Adam and Eve, were told, you cannot have the eitz hadat tov v'ra. Even though he wants to turn it into the eitz hachayim, he wants to turn that tree of knowledge of good and evil into the tree of life. This is not what one does. This is not the correct approach. So the idea again here is that after the sin of the spies, that the Jewish people were feeling down, this man wanted to re-emphasize for them that we've got to do the right thing, we have to stick for it. He was even willing to give his own life for that message. However, ultimately that's the wrong approach. That's the end of the 5 minutes. I will have some bonus material if you want. Thank you for staying with me. The other idea I'm thinking is, why is that incident mentioned right over here? The idea is that this was my thoughts, is that one of the explanations given for the spies is that the spies say, here we live in the desert, here we are taken care of by Hashem. We have manna every day. We have Moshe teaching us the Torah. We have this completely spiritual lifestyle. To go into Israel and to deal with the muck and reality of daily life is something that will drag us down, and that's something we don't want. We want to stay in the desert. And Hashem's answer to them was, no, that's not right. I want you to get into the real world and bring holiness into the real world, not to do it only in your ivory tower. And it occurred to me that perhaps this man, by gathering the wood, was trying to say that same thing, was trying to say we should serve Hashem through difficulty, and we should even serve Hashem through sin. And Hashem is saying, you crossed the line there. Yes, you should serve them through difficulty. Yes, you should serve Hashem through your life. Yes, if you do sin, you should do teshuvah. But I don't want you to go so far as to say we should serve Hashem through sin. You know, you have the extremes which are not good. You have the extreme of the spies to say we want to serve Hashem from this perfect fairyland of the wilderness, and you have the extreme of this man gathering the wood of saying we should serve Hashem even from the depths of sin, and Hashem saying, no, I want you to serve Hashem from the difficult reality of everyday life, but that every day you will strive to do the right thing. Shabbat Shalom.